To be doing Unit 2, Notes 1. So for Unit 2, Notes 1, we're going to be talking about graphing systems of equations. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to graph these two equations on the same coordinate plane. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So for the first one, I have y is equal to 3x minus 5. So it means that we're crossing the y-axis at negative 5, which is right here. And then my slope is 3. Now remember that 3 is the same as 3 over 1. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, and over 1, and connecting, or I'm drawing that point. So now I can go ahead and I can connect those two lines. Now I want to try and draw the lines as straight as possible because I'm going to try and figure out where they intersect. Okay? So let's take a look at this next one. Y is equal to a negative 1/2 x plus 2. Well, that means that we're crossing the y-axis at 2. And then I'm going down 1 and right 2, since that's my slope. So I'm going down 1, right 2, and plotting that point. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that point. So what do we notice about these lines? Well, I notice that they only cross once, and they cross at a point. Okay? So those are some things that I notice about these lines. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 2. So for number 2, our first one's already solved for y, so we can go ahead and graph it. We're crossing the y-axis at negative 6. And then my slope is 3, which is the same as 3 over 1. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, and over 1, and I'm plotting that point right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect those 2 points, like so. Okay? Then I need to solve this equation right here for y. That's the only way I'm going to be able to graph it. So I have 6x minus 2y is equal to 12. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6x from both sides, and then I get that negative 2y is equal to a negative 6x plus 12. Now that negative 2 is being multiplied by the y, so to get it over to the other side, I need to divide both sides by a negative 2. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is going to give me a positive 3, and then an x. 12 divided by negative 2 is going to give me a negative 6. So then I get the line that y is equal to 3 minus 6. Well, what do I notice? Well, I already drew that line. Okay, so what I notice here is that the lines are exactly the same. So that's what I notice about the two lines, is that they're in fact the same line. Next, let's go ahead and let's take a look at systems of linear equations. Okay, so one thing we need to know about, here are some things we need to know about systems of linear equations. So what is a system of linear equations? So a system of linear equations is a system, a set of 2 or more linear equations. Okay, so you don't have to write that down. The next 2 is what you'll put in the box. The solution to a system is the point x, y where they cross. That can go in your first spot. So the solution is the point that the two lines cross. Then, a solution of 2, 3, for example, means that the lines are crossing at those 2 points on the graph. So go ahead and pause the video and take whatever time you need to get those 2 things written down. So let's take a look at this next part. So there are 3 different types of solutions to a system of equations. So the first type of solution, go ahead and just draw a little picture on there for you so you know what it looks like, is that there's one solution. So that means the 2 points are going to cross at one line. So we write that solution as a coordinate pair. Next is that there are parallel lines. So if there's parallel lines, that means the 2 are never going to cross. And maybe make a note to yourself that 2 lines are parallel if they have the same slope. Okay, so if they're parallel lines, they're never going to cross each other. Then, taking a look, the last one is called infinite solutions. And that's if we solve it and end up getting the same line, that means that there are infinite solutions. And so, sometimes I'm a little lazy and I don't like to write out infinite solutions, so I write IMS, which means infinitely many solutions. That's a way you can abbreviate it if you would like to. So go ahead and make sure you pause the video and get that written down. Now let's take a look at these steps. So this is the steps to graphing a system of equations. I would pause, get this written down, and then you can listen to what I'm saying. So for the first one, number 1 is to graph the first line. So all you're going to do, follow the steps for graphing like we did in Unit 1. For number 2, you're going to graph the second line, again, following the steps that we did in Unit 1. For number 3, you want to find the ordered pair where they intersect. If there's parallel lines, that means there's no solution. If they're the same line, that means there are infinitely many solutions. That's what we just talked about in the chart above. So go ahead and make sure you have all of those steps written down. So in that box up above, you're just going to jot down just kind of the idea that it's as simple as graphing two lines. So just put that in that solve systems by graphing. It's as simple as graphing two lines and figuring out where they cross. So let's go ahead and let's try that right now. So for number 3, we're crossing the y-axis at 8. Now 8 is going to be right here. So the slope is negative x, which is the same as negative 1x. Well, negative 1x is negative 1 over 1. Okay? So that means from my y-intercept of 8, I'm going down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw that. Okay? Then for number 4, or for the second one, I'm crossing the y-axis at negative 7. So I find negative 7 on the y-axis and I plot that point. Then my slope is 4, which remember is the same as 4 over 1. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. And I'm going to go ahead and plot that point. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect the dots and draw that line. So now I need to estimate what point this is going to cross at. Now I will tell you that graphing is actually an inaccurate way of identifying the solution. We'll do more accurate versions later. So if you're a little bit off, that's okay as long as it's in the general region. Well, to me, it looks like I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means my x coordinate is 4. Remember that points go x and then y. And then I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4. So my solution is around the area 4, 4. As long as your solution is in that general region, you are A-okay. So let's take a look at number 4. So for number 4, we're crossing the y-axis at 6. So we're going to go up 6 on the y-axis, which is right here. And then my slope is negative 1/2. So I'm going down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that graph in. There we are. Then for the second one, I'm crossing the y-axis at a positive 1, which is right here, and then up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and so forth. And I'm going to connect those dots. And now I want to estimate about where they're crossing. So I'm going to say that they were supposed to cross at this point, okay? So when I do that, I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my right coordinate is 6, or my x coordinate, sorry. And then I'm going up 3. So the coordinate point that I estimated them crossing at is 6, 3. So that, again, is just an estimate for number 4. Now let's take a look at number 5. So for number 5, we're crossing the y-axis at 5 for that first one. So I'm going to go ahead and plot 5 on the x-axis. Now my slope, again, if there's no number out the front, is 1. So the slope is negative 1, which is the same as negative 1 over 1. So from that point on the y-axis, I'm going down 1, right 1, plotting that point, down 1, right 1, plotting that point, and so forth all the way down. So I'm going to start and I'm going to graph that line right there. And then I'm crossing the next one, I'm crossing the y-axis at negative 3. And then I'm going up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. And then I can go ahead and go like that. So now I want to figure out where I'm crossing. So it looks like I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going over 4, so that's my x-coordinate. And then it looks like I'm going up about 1. Check your graph. Did you get 4, 1, or does yours look a little different? It might, because it's not super accurate. So check that your solution is somewhere in that general region. Let's take a look at number 6 now. So for number 6, we're going to cross the y-axis on the first one at negative 5. And then the slope is negative 1, which remember is the same as negative 1 over 1. So then I'm going down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that line right there. Then for number 6, I notice that I'm crossing the y-axis at a negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and plot negative 4. And then I'm going down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, and plotting that point. Okay, so what I notice is that these have the same slope but different intercepts. So these two lines are actually parallel to each other. So that means that there is no solution. Even if you can tell from the equations that there is no solution, I still want you guys to make sure you're graphing those parallel lines. Let's take a look at number 7. So for number 7, we're going to cross the y-axis at 1 for the first one, and then our slope again is negative 1. So I'm going down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. I'm going to go ahead and graph that. So I see that the second one has the same slope but with a different y-intercept. So I know there's going to be no solution, but I'm still going to graph those parallel lines anyway. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 4, which is right here, down one, right one, down one, right one. And then once I do that, I can go ahead and graph, and I have my two parallel lines, which again means that there is no solution. So let's take a look at number 8. We're crossing the y-axis at -3, which is right here. Since there's no number in front of my x, that means the slope is 1 or 1 over 1. So then I'm going up from -3, I'm going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So this is my line right here. Then, taking a look at the next one, I'm crossing the y-axis at 1, and my slope is going to be a -1. So I'm going down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. So it looks like they're crossing right here. So I'm going over 2, and then I notice I go down. And since I go down 1, that's going to be a negative. Remember that whenever you go down or left, it's going to be negative. So that concludes your note video for today. Go ahead and show me your completed note sheet when you're done. Thanks for listening.